Hi everybody, Happy New Year and all that. I hope you've had a lovely holiday and you may be opening some new presents, say a lathe for instance. Well, we're going to give you over the next few months a lot of, hopefully a lot of ideas as to how to use your new toys. But the first one we're going to do today is this lovely little pinstripe bowl. Pinstripe bowl, we've got some maple and we've got some sonic helen, that plantation grown rosewood, and just a nice simple project just to ease us into 2024. So let's have a look and see how we start this one. Okay, so we've glued everything up and we've cut it, so we've got a nice bowl blank. I'm going to use, or I am using, the screw chuck instead of a faceplate for this one. It's a nice flat piece. It's a small enough bowl to get away with the screw chuck. So I've drilled an 8mm hole and then we've put the blank onto the screw chuck. All I'm going to do now, or to start with, this is going to be a fairly small little plate platter sort of style, is skim the surface, create my tenon, which will be a sacrificial tenon, so we'll take it off at the end, and then create the shape and get that finish nice. We're going to get extraction going as well, which shouldn't be too much of a distraction, but let's start by skimming. So literally just that surface. Looks a little bit wobbly at the moment, but we'll make it round in a sec. It's going to be quite pretty. I've aimed for the center band to be dead center, just to remain right up through the middle of the piece. I just think it'll look quite nice that way. There we are, so skim flat. So I've got one level surface there really. So that's that. Let's get our tenon made. So I'm going to use the C-jaws for this. Let's go, that's the external. Let's go internal grip I want. So let's go slightly smaller than that. So just using the speed sizer there, just for an obvious reason, just to help me with that sizing, make sure it's exactly right. So there we are, that's the size we need. Now I can grip onto the tenon, or will be when I've made it anyway. Take away the excess. And even though I've got a sacrificial foot, I'm still going to have a nice flat base. So there's going to be no tenon. When we finish, just a nice little flat base. And I'll shape that in a minute. Nice simple form. Because we've got those lovely lines running up through, we don't want an intricate shape to this one. So just a nice simple basic curve. So now let's just stop the lathe. That was a draw cut. So we need now to make a nice finishing cut. So I'll bring the tool rest back in nice and close. Get that bevel rubbing. There we are. A little bit of touching up just here where I couldn't quite get that bevel in, so I'm just dropping the handle, using that bottom wing of the bowl gouge just as a little skew, and that creates these lovely little wispy shavings. Great finish when you're doing that technique. Just to blend in, and obviously looking to make sure that form stays constant. There we are. Do I want that shape? I think I do. That's looking quite nice. So we've got a nice flat base, so it's going to be lovely and stable on the table. I'll skim that with a skew. So we're just going to use a wide skew there just to give us a nice flat face. And whilst I'm in there, we'll just true up the tenon. So that's nice and square. Remember, we're using the C-jaws, and the inside of a C-jaw has that nice little tenon as opposed to a dovetail. So that's going to give me a nice firm grip. Making sure I've got no sort of deviations from the curve. I want it a nice constant curve, and that's fine. I think that's ready now. How are we doing in terms of perfect round? A little bit of a flat on there. That I'm not concerned about that. We're going to shape down to that on a slight curved rim to it, so we're going to get away with that. So I think we're ready to sand. Because this timber's behaving really quite well, I'm not going to power sand. I'm just going to go straight in with hand sanding. And right at the end, I'll just use a rotary sander to do the 400 grit. So dust extraction on. Starting off with 100. I'm going to work through. I'm going to go 100, 150, 240, 400. Sorry, 150. 100, 150, 240, 320, then 400. Lathe speed down a little bit. Try and drag turn that off a minute. Try and drag that a little closer. That'll be better. And then we'll start sanding. Now, the timbers that we're using for this, as I said earlier, they're maple and sonicalin, so that plantation grown rosewood. I'm not worried about that, but the maple, if you get it too warm on the end grain, so up at this region here, it'll start to split on you, or little crazes will start to creep in. So keep that paper moving. Don't hang around in one place for too long. Make sure your abrasive is actually still alive, and you're not having to sand for ages just because your abrasive is a bit dull. You know, so use good abrasive, fresh abrasive, and keep that abrasive moving around the piece. This hand is just there just to feel how warm things are. We'll stop and have a look. That's a 100 grit, and I want to make sure everything in terms of removal of tool marks, of tears and things like that is done with a 100 grit before we move on. We haven't done the job yet, so we need to keep sanding. Stop and have a check. Looking all right. Yep, so let's move up. So now we go to 150. Bring all the abrasive over. So 150. There we are, 240. 320. And 400. So with a 400, we're gonna use a 400 on the rotary sander as well. So this is the hand sanding. Just stop and have a look and see where we are with that. That looks pretty good, pretty good. So then if I take the rotary sander also, that's got a 400 grit. And then back with a 400 again. Just because it's maple, let's go to a 600. One of those things, maple and walnut in particular, in terms of UK timber, maple and walnut tend to hold a scratch for a lot longer, so I do tend to go a little bit higher in abrasives. I think 600, 800 just will really help out. There we go. I think that should do it. Let's just have a look. I'll turn the extractor off. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. So what we'll do now, we'll add a bit of oil. So oil's going to bring the colour right way out. It's going to make that dark really, really jump. So and oil also, once it's set and fully cured, it's going to give a nice resistance to moisture and things like that, so it'll stay shinier for longer. Oil is a slightly longer process to finish though, so we're going to apply the oil. I'm going to get some heat in the bowl then by burnishing with some shavings, and then I'll buff it up. Then normally, and I'll have to come back to that tomorrow, but I can come back to it in the via buffing. So I can put buffing oil on the lathe and buff it to a good finish if I want to. Or if you want to put more coats on, leave it to tomorrow, burnish it on the lathe, another coat on, leave it another 24 hours and so on. Especially things like food safe. So food safe oil is the one I'm using here at the moment. That's a mineral oil. And so they generally take a little bit longer because they don't have dryers in them. If you use them like a finishing oil or Danish oil, they'll have a drying agent in them. Most of the time it's something like a white spirit. But so even though it's still 24 hours, they harden quite quickly. But yeah, this just takes a little bit longer. The good thing with oil, like I said though, is you do get like the lovely water resistance. Not waterproofing, but a water resistance. And so that means that the finish will actually stay bright and vibrant for a lot longer. I mean, literally the minute you put something on, this banding just jumps. The pinstriping itself jumps out. It's quite a pretty piece. And you get a real shimmer from the oil as well. Chatoyance. There we are. It's already starting to soak its way in. Now with a little bit of a buff tomorrow, that will really come out. And I tend to buff with a loose leaf mop that's got some carnauba on, and that just helps to harden that exterior finish as well. But there, that's there. So I'm going to grab some shavings. I don't really want to have any of the dark shavings in, because the colour is fast and it will come out in the bowl as a stripe. So I'm trying to avoid that, which is difficult considering it's all the way through the piece. Yeah, that's all right. Lathe speed to 0, turn the lathe on, and then slowly increase the speed. If you go straight into a lathe speed, then you're going to get a face full of oil. So start nice and slow, allow it to dry a little bit. That's making a really funky pattern on the video. That's quite cool. We got Steph on the video today. I would normally say put your questions in the chat, but as we're not live, there's no point in doing that. You can talk to each other, but I won't be able to see any. I shall probably be having a mince pie and a little bit of sherry when this goes out. Okay, that speed up a little bit now. So by now, I mean, the oil's still, it's not set yet. It's going to be a while before that happens, but this is just burnishing, starting that drying process, laying the colour down flat. You can see what's left, not a huge amount on there. Really nice. The good thing with oil, because of the way we do it, is sort of, you can sand the oil in, you can burnish oil in, and what you're doing is you're raising the grain and taking it off, so you create a real sort of silkiness to the finish of the timber. So it's a really smooth finish, you know, and that won't disappear because you've taken the fibers away that would normally stand up. So that's lovely. Okay, what we'll do now, if we just take it off its screw chuck, and then we can take the screw chuck out and just flip that then into the C-jaws. I don't need to go particularly thin with this. I want a little bit of weight with it. It's going to have a nice flat bottom because we've got a flat base here, and I don't want there to be any issues and potential going through the bottom. So I want to make sure that line remains the same as the exterior line. So I want to follow that profile. There we are, biting onto the foot. Foot's about 3 mil, about 1/8. But if you make the foot the same diameter as the internal part of the jaws when they're at their full circle, you'll get a maximum grip, the strongest grip you can get. There we are. So just below the centre, we've got a good visual indicator there, look. Okay, that hole. Lay speed to 0. Turn the machine on, and then turn the speed up. I'm going to go with a 3/8 bowl gouge. Skim the surface first. When we get to finish this bowl, the rim is going to be a very slightly convex curved. So I'm just going to, whilst we've got solid material there, I'm just going to put a little bit of curve on there now, and then we can shape properly later. So otherwise you get a huge amount of vibration when you're trying to do this when you've got no strength left in the middle. There we are, about that. The other thing I will say, this timber, maple, or any really dense timber, we've now created a razor on that outside edge. Keep your fingers away. First turning related injury I ever got was must have been about 13, 14, and it was a sapele platter, similar size to this one, and I cut my finger really, really quite badly on the external part of that because you've just created a meat slice, to be fair. Right, let's stop the lathe, just see where we are. We've got plenty of room there still. I'm going to go to a smaller gouge. You can see that we've got a few ridges. Well, I think you can see we've got a few ridges. I can see them where the light's bouncing off it there. So to eliminate those ridges or to make them as small as possible, go to a smaller gouge or put a secondary bevel on your bowl gouge and do that on the heel of the bowl gouge. So you're creating more of a convex bevel to the concave shape of the internal part of that bowl. And that's all that's happening. If you think about it, you're trying to push a flat bevel around a concave shape. And so that means you only get the heel and the cutting edge engaged and touching. And so you do get a little bit of breakout of tear because of that, and you get these ridges. So a secondary bevel will really, really help. I'm going to try and get over it by going to a smaller gouge instead, just for this one. Oh, I was just about to tell you. I was just about to say to make sure you don't get any skipping when you start the cut, which is a very common thing. What you need to do is, and if it's happening an awful lot, is the flute, just turn it right the way over to 3 o'clock. Bring the handle right the way around this way as well. Get out the camera. And that way, then you're presenting a dead upright position with the cutting edge. That creates then a shoulder, which you can then push against. And just before I was able to say it, usual happened. Grabs like that tend to only happen when you're at the last couple of cuts. And the reason that happens is because your body is slightly different and you're holding the chisel slightly differently because you're almost expecting something. So that will be the reason. That'll be the way to stop it. And one more cut in there. Carefully bringing my fingers around. Pushing the bevel, trying to get a much smoother cut. That's lovely. That's the thickness I want. Happy with that. Happy with that. Good. Let me just correct my mistake. Re-round this base. Supporting it with my left hand because of that vibration. If I don't, you get a little bit more vibration creep in. There we are. That should do us. Right, let's go back to the bigger gouge. Just going to double check again for feel. The thickness, sorry. Yeah, we're in the right place. I'm going to put the dust extraction on. It's very, very dry, this timber. I'm getting a little bit of dust, which I don't want to take in. Stop and do another check. Yeah, that's nice and flat. I'm happy. So continue to the center. I'm going to stop once again. I just want to make sure, yeah, we've got a bit of a raise in the middle at the moment, so that's got to go. going to go one more. Just one more small cut. Yep, happy with that. So now we can start the sanding process again. So again, starting with the 100, work our way through. It's looking nice and simple shapes. Up to the 240 now. Uh, 320. There we are. One thing we haven't spoken about on this one, I've used Type Bond Original to glue this together, but make sure you use a decent glue. You get the joining surfaces prepped well and leave it clamped for a decent amount of time. I actually left this the whole weekend, but usually sort of 24 hours is long enough. But yeah, decent quality glue. So let's do a little bit of the rotary sanding. Here we are, finish up with a 600. Lovely. And then we're going to go back in with our oil. Same process on the oil, so we're going to burnish hard first. Split this bit, and you suddenly see all those lovely colours jump out. There we go. Okay, let's burnish that with some shavings. Remember, just checking for any of those dark areas. That seems good. Lathe speed to 0, turn the lathe on. Slowly increase the speed of the lathe as that oil starts to dry and get absorbed. Don't hang around too long on the outside edges, otherwise you can burn it with the shavings. Dry bit of tissue. There we go. I got that lovely shimmer from this maple. It's really quite pretty to use. You can just see it there. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to swap it over. We're going to turn it over. I want to be able to remove the foot that we have on the bottom. That's not part of the finished bowl. So that it was only there for work holding. So that's what we're going to do next. I've got a couple of options. I can either go push plate or I can go button jaws if they're big enough. And I don't think yeah, they might be actually. Let's have a look at button jaws. We haven't had a look at them for a while, so I'm going to just change the position of the buttons. But options are push plate, button jaws, wood plate jaws. They all do the same sort of thing. Button jaws and wood plates, you hold the bowl on the rim, so that means that you don't need the tailstock and you can get rid of it. If I'm using my push plate, then I just sand the little nib away at the very end. So that's a push plate. You've seen me use these plenty of times before, and that just holds in the C jaws, expand into it, and then use the tailstock to push the bowl against that and take away the foot. Like I say, that does leave a little nib that you have to clean up by hand afterwards, which is not a problem. I probably use the push plate more than anything else, if I'm honest, because it's quick and I can do lots of bowls, no matter what the size is. So just for speed, keep an eye on it. Just for speed, and they go all over the floor. We're going to roughly tighten them on. Right, let's just see if that'll fit. There's no guarantee here, I haven't checked really, but what I want is that to fit in there. Yes, look at that, it's wonderful. Just push against the jaw, bring the buttons in. These are soft buttons, these are rubber. Tightening on. And then we're just going to remove this foot, and then we'll sand that up, and that'll be done. So lathe speed to 0, turn the lathe on, clean that last little bit off. We're going to go with a small gouge. I'll put the dust extraction back on because we go straight into sanding as well. Nice, simple, plain form, letting the timber and those lovely stripes speak for themselves. Down to 240. $320. And then 400. Turn the extraction off now. And we're just going to do exactly the same thing. I want to be careful how far up I burnish. I don't want to now attack the rest of this bowl. We've done that. It's just this last little bit. So lay speed down to 0, turn the machine on, and then up with the speed. Get rid of all those bits of rosewood. That's it, dry piece of tissue. And that is pretty much be that bowl. Get ready to catch. There we are, nice base there, nice and flat. Like I say, simple lines just to go with those lovely markings. There we are. So let's get rid of that one. Right out of my way now. So I hope you enjoyed that one. It's something a little bit different. There's only, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of timber, but you're sort of utilising those thinner slithers that you might have lying around, giving you a project to use them on. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Don't forget, I say it every single time, if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notifications button so you get reminded when we're going to do another video, and yeah, tell all your friends about us if you could. See you again next week. That was a real fun one. Thank you very much. Bye.